So interesting in this part is we got to discuss about the quality assessment. We got to understand how and why should you make feeds which will actually be consumed. It is interesting that you can actually make feeds, and the animals you're making for, they will either reject the feed, and at the end of the day you are, well, going to make a loss. So how do you ensure that you are able to meet all these requirements? Whether can your feeds be palatable, can your feeds be digestible, how do you do that? Then we also got to discuss about quality control mechanism. This is whereby I think in some parts, for guys who are doing the formulation, they might have heard about the aflatoxins. How do you prevent this from happening, or how do you detect that there's an element of that? And also remember, when you're talking about the feeds formulation, most of the times is about mixing the right kind of nutrients which are actually needed by a certain type of animals. So how do you get to, well, ensure these happen in the right ways? And something interesting, let me just refer, because it was a lot of information. We got to talk about animal performance trials, and I think with the Afrifama, this is what we have been doing since the first month, and it can be really effective. This is whereby you get to put a certain numbers of animals, then you get to feed them that certain feed. This actually ensures at the end of the day you are able to do the observation, and you can actually ascertain their performance. Then other than the performance base, we got to talk about lab test. This is whereby you take your samples, they are able, whether in form of the raw materials or the finished products, they can be tested and be determined if the right nutrients are actually available or not available. And this we actually saw it's all very essential. If you actually carry it before you process your feeds, you can save yourself a great deal, because most of the time you don't want to process feeds, and the next day you find out, well, you actually didn't make any quality feeds, which means you go into a waste. Well, you could actually prevented this waste. So that was much more on that. Then later in the afternoon, we got to go through the digestive system. And honestly, at some point, I was like, okay, why do I need to know about the digestive system? Honestly, for the first few times I've consulted the guys in our manufacturing sectors, everybody has been saying you need to know about the digestive system. You need to understand even the kind of animals you're dealing with. Now, this unit kind of provided insight on why that is essential, and how you can actually formulate the right kind of feeds based on different digestive system, and how they are being assimilated, and these nutrients being obtained in the cells of the animals. It was a tough one, because I don't remember being so keen in biology back in school. I was actually a physics guy. At some point, I thought I would end up being an engineer, but hey, here we are. It means every unit you study back in school sometimes can be very effective, because you are able to build up on those kind of aspect, and this is what helps you to be able to make quality feed for your animals, or whether for other people you are actually formulating for. And the last part of the day is, that was in the afternoon, we got to go through the nutrients element. And this was very key, because you realize you can actually not talk about feed formulation if you are not talking about nutrients. So, because obviously feed formulation, it's more about ascertaining the right kind of nutrients, and you are able to now gather them in form of the raw materials, and then you mix them in accordance to the animal requirement, or the formulation which has been credited, or which have been well ascertained to work for that kind of animal. So we got to go deeper into that, and we got to talk about things like why nutrients are so important. We talked about the maintenance, the growth, the reproduction, and eventually we talk about the element of the production. So other than that, we got to go deeper, and this is whereby we looked on different kind of nutrients which are needed in feed formulation, starting from water. I know, right? Who would have actually thought water is a nutrient? But hey, wait, say our bodies contains, well, a bigger part of water. Hence, well, without it, it becomes impossible. Then also understand the element whereby you have to utilize it. It's assimilated in terms of the mineral or other nutrients absorption to the animals. Then we got to talk about the carbohydrates. These being the energy source for the animals. How actually can you get the right kind of carbohydrates, where their source is, and what is the effect is. Then we got to talk about the proteins. And most of us, I know, proteins, we associate it with meat or something, but eventually this is more about the it's one of the most important nutrients which is used in feed formulation, which you might be asking yourself why. So this is based on enzymes, hormones, and also the building materials, and obviously their sources as well. Then eventually later in the day, we talked about the lipids, the other kind minerals, the vitamins, why they so important, and how they are actually used, and how you can actually get them to use them in animal feeds manufacturing. And obviously now we are going to the last one. I'm actually rushing so that this is on the practical element. So because you understand, of all those key things that I've been able to highlight, that was on just the theoretical element. It means now we need to say them, we need to do it in action. For example, I believe if it's for the nutrients, we got to see how do they look like. Because remember, if this is your first time you go to the market and you have no even idea how these kind of things looks like, becomes impossible for you. So, and of course when you're talking about the digestive system, you got to see it, because I mean at the end of the day you're making feeds and these feeds are going to be used. So obviously you don't want to mess up with that. So well, this is very interesting. I'm super excited because hey, the little knowledge I knew back then was more based on one of my good friends who actually does a bit of feed formulation, and he's also into hatchery. He's by the brand name that is a Grow Chick. You should go and check him out. But other than that, this has been a little bit limited, and I wanted now to go deeper into understanding, because you realize if you are doing this, it becomes essential, especially if you tend to go to the commercialization route, because you don't only want to mess up with the product you're dealing with, but also to mess up with your client. And also tend to understand, later I'm also in the process whereby I'm getting the certification for KEBS, and also it's a very string process, so you don't want to mess up in anything, because this is a brand you're building. And this is why I usually say the best way to learn, or the best way to do something, is actually to invest in learning. And that is, if there are seminars, just go for them. If there are courses, just go for them. It might take you time, it might cost you resources, and also the biggest resource, that's time, other than just money. But this is it. The good thing is, at the end of the day, you'll be able actually to make one of the best products, and eventually you tend to have a big say in the market. That is, your product has competitive edge as compared to others. So now that has been the training, and interesting enough, we still have 4 days to go. I'm already buzzing. So eventually, looking forward to know exactly what is the next process now that we have touched the bases. How do you go forward? The real deal. And I'll be sharing this journey with you guys. It will roughly take me 5 days, so stay tuned in this segment. I know most of you guys are in poultry farming and you've always wanted to look for alternative ways of feed formulation. So I'll be sharing some of these insights, and hopefully this is going to help you in your journey, whether it's in poultry farming. And even when you talk about feed formulation, this is a whole wide area, because you can do formulation for any type of animals, and we'll be sharing this kind of insight. So stay tuned to the Afrifama channel, and hey, if you're not subscribed, you have to subscribe, because that is the only way you will be getting this kind of insight. And if you tend to like the kind of content we produce, don't hesitate to hit that like button. And hey, if you ever have a friend who is into poultry farming, agribusiness, feed formulation, you can as well share. So until next time, it's a goodbye from Afrifama. See you tomorrow with a new episode, still on feeds formulation. And I hope this has been a good one for you. We actually now going to the practical elements. So I'll be sharing with you what we'll be doing there and some of the observation. Otherwise, until next time, this has been a good adventure. So bye.